Okay. So for one, the homework is up on Canvas, or at least the submission protocol is up on Canvas. Or I should say you can submit the assignment on Canvas, but the instructions for how to submit are on OneNote. So it's due Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. And yeah, you just to kind of refresh, just make sure you submit as a PDF. It'll only accept PDF submissions, and it'll only accept one PDF. So if you're trying to do everything as one document if you're trying to print everything, then you can go about that way. But it's also okay to use your iPad or whatnot and annotate that way and submit. There's no restriction on that. So anyway, more or less straightforward, but I'll open up the homework just to look at it again. Okay, also a student asked if I could upload the dictation as an MP3 file instead of an AIFF file. So I've since uploaded the dictation excerpts as MP3s instead of AIFF. And we've basically covered every single thing that we need to about the homework. I guess the only thing that we haven't talked about yet is our triads. And I guess scales are something that we can also hit. At this point, we're almost ready to leave review stage and to go on to new material. Next week's homework pertains to seventh chords. So we're on the cusp of learning about something very new and exciting. Am I sharing my screen? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Oh, am I? This is bizarre. Was I sharing my screen or? Oh, I was. Okay. It's okay. Great. It's bizarre. It's normally I see your faces. One sec. Gosh, I don't know what's going on here. Sorry, technical difficulties. Oh. Okay, here we go. Okay. Right, so we're on the precipice of learning about seventh chords. Very exciting stuff. In order to properly understand these kinds of chords, or chords in general, it's important to refresh the concept of intervals. We talked a little bit about intervals last class, but we'll refresh the topic again. So one of the things I want to point you to on the OneNote is the chords section. There's stuff that sort of foreshadows things that we'll learn about in the future, like seventh chords are already described here. Different ways of thinking about them. But what you'll find here are also just basic ways to describe chords, triads, okay? So the first thing I want you to kind of familiarize yourself with is, well, do you want to build a snowman, right? There's this classic line from Frozen. It's one of those ubiquitous things that that you see in music theory all the time. It's this snowman kind of configuration. And this is a triad. Basically, if you create a snowman with basically three different components, if you basically stack a chord in thirds, if you have two thirds, right? Sorry, yeah, if you have basically this configuration of three notes, two thirds stacked on top of each other, you have triads. Basically, the devil's in the details, though. Really what you have to be cautious of and aware of are the particular intervals that constitute these thirds, right? So you see a third here, and you see a third here, right? Now this is a major third, and this is a minor third, okay? Whereas this is a minor third, and this is a major third, right? We'll explain more about it, but you'll basically see thirds of all varieties. Thirds, thirds, major third, minor third, minor third, minor third, major third, major third, minor third, right? Now you see these particular triads. That's all good and dandy. Now, how do you describe intervals? How do you know that this is a major third and not a minor third, or vice versa? Now, remember, in order to make that distinction, you have to understand the difference between staff distance and half-step distance. So if we're looking at particular intervals, we talked about this last class, there's two ways to classify an interval. You can look at the staff distance. In this case, it's from here to here, it's a second, right? The staff distance, sorry, it's the first time my dog's seen me this morning, and she's excited to see me. I don't think she's gonna let me, she's not gonna stop. So it's basically, this right here is a second, right? And from a staff distance perspective, because you're on a line note, and then you're going to a space note, correct? Right? So that's a staff distance of a second. Let's take a look at these two notes. Let's look at the staff distance here. You have a line note, you skip the space note, and then you're back to a line note, right? So you have 1, you skip the 2, and then you're on 3, right? 1 is on the line, you skip the space, and then you're on the line, right? We're just going on the staff in order to calculate the staff distance, right? So with that being said, you have an understanding of the staff distance. That's when you're building triads, the triads are always made up of thirds. They're always spelled with thirds. In other words, you always see this kind of configuration of stacked thirds. It looks like that, it's spelled like that, in that, like the staff, you're seeing this number to the right on this interval as a third. You're not seeing it as a second or a fourth. They're thirds. Triads are made up of thirds, right? Now, understanding precisely how to get which third you're looking for, the quality of the triad, yes, the quality of the triad, you need to get the specific interval, right? So, so we've talked about the staff distance, but now we have to get the correct half-step distance. So in order to get the correct half-step distance, it's useful to memorize all the intervals in order, the vanilla intervals, right? So here are basically, I'm just going to rename this vanilla intervals. Okay, I'm going to write memorize. The vanilla intervals, these are kind of like this is the basic way of thinking about the half-step distances, right? So if you have 0 half-step, the vanilla way of thinking about that interval is it's a unison. If you have 1 half-step distance, the vanilla way of thinking about that is the interval is a minor second. If you have 2 half-steps, the way of kind of thinking about that is it's a major second. 3 half-steps is a minor third. 4 half-steps is a major third. So when I ask you to memorize this, I basically want you to memorize this entire sequence of intervals. So let's say this with me, okay? And actually just mute yourself, but say this along with me. Unison, minor second, major second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, minor sixth, major sixth, minor seventh, major seventh, octave. Okay, let's say that one more time. And as you're saying it, keep track of how many half steps there are. So you could like hold up your fist if you'd like, but just keep track. Unison has 0. Minor second, major second 2, minor third 3, major third 4, perfect fourth 5, tritone 6, perfect fifth 7. Minor sixth, 8. Major sixth, 9. Minor seventh, 10. Major seventh, 11. Octave, 12. You see them all here, right? Minor second, minor third, major third. The way I like remembering this is I like thinking about which ones are have minor and major counterparts. So for instance, these two right here are grouped together in my mind. Minor second and major second. There's a minor version of a second, there's a major version of a second, right? And then for thirds, there's a minor version of a third, there's a major version of a third, right? Then when you get to perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, they're all kind of separate, right? You can think of a perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, right? Then you have a minor sixth and a major sixth. Those are kind of together, right? Then you have a minor seventh and a major seventh. These are together. And then you have an octave. So basically, this is as easy as counting to 7. Memorizing this is as easy as counting to 7. It's just that when you count to 7, you have to remember which ones are major and which ones have major and minor counterparts, which ones are perfect, right? I can't underscore how important it is to memorize this when you're trying to figure out intervals. So, you know what? Let's do this one more time. And hopefully at this point, you're starting to memorize this. Minor second, major second. Minor third, major third. Perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth. Minor sixth, major sixth. Minor seventh, major seventh. Octave. Okay? So I'm going to say an interval, and I want someone to just phone in the next interval, okay? In fact, let's play telephone. Let's play telephone over Zoom, okay? Or whatever it is to say a sequence. So I'll start. Minor second, someone else says the next one.
Major second.
Minor third.
Major third.
Perfect fourth.
Tritone.
Perfect fifth.
Minor sixth.
Minor sixth.
Major sixth.
Minor seventh.
Major seventh.
Octave.
Fantastic, wonderful. So here is the deal, okay? I'm trying to remember, you've had to do augmented and diminished intervals already, or have you? I have to remember. I think you have had to do that already from the standpoint of the homework already has that, right? Yes, it does. So when we're talking about the vanilla intervals, we're talking about the ones that aren't augmented or diminished, except for the tritone. I guess this tritone is not the vanilla, it's not a vanilla interval, technically. Now here is how we evaluate intervals, okay? So let me just come up with an interval, random interval. Okay. So I'm going to play. Can you guys hear that okay? You can't hear it. Okay. Thanks. Play. Okay, I think you should be able to hear it now. Cool. Okay, so we've got this interval right here. Okay. Now this particular interval, in fact, just give me one moment. Okay. This particular interval, what is the staff distance of this interval? What is the staff distance? So from here to here, what are we looking at? We're looking at this line note. We're skipping this space note and we're going to this line note. So what is the staff distance?
Is that a major third?
Okay, so I'll go in steps. So someone said it's a third, right? Now we have to figure out, someone also said, oh, it's a major third. Well, how can we confirm if it's a major third? Well, let's count every single note in between those two notes, okay? Let's count every single half step. So let me actually open up a keyboard. Okay, so we're on this note right here, right? And then we're going to this note. So let's count, okay? So we're going from this note to this note. So let's actually traverse, remember that those intervals I asked you to memorize? We're gonna use them now, okay? Minor second, minor third, major third. You guys remember that? Remember how I asked you to memorize intervals just a minute ago? The way you apply that when you're calculating intervals, at least this is one way of doing it, is that you traverse the piano keys in order, and then you arrive, basically the note that you arrive at, you just keep saying the intervals in order until you get to the note that you arrive at, okay? So if we're going from this note to this note, we have to traverse all these notes in between, right? To find out the interval, okay? So unison, if you have a note going to the same note, it's unison, right? So if I'm going to this note, what is this interval? I'm starting on this note and going to this note. What is this interval?
Minor second.
Minor second.
Okay, cool. Then what about this note?
Major second.
Okay, how about this note?
Minor third.
Uh-huh.
And then major third.
Major third, exactly. So, okay, now this is what you have to do now. You check this note against this note, right? You check this note and you see it's an E, and then you see that this note is an E. So you say, ah, this is a major third. This is the vanilla case, right? Okay. What if I had this? Okay. So let's do this. Let's go from this note right here, this C, and we're going to go, what is this E sharp? It's what? It's technically, it's E sharp is here, right? It's like, it's the enharmonic equivalent of F natural, right? E sharp is the enharmonic equivalent of F, right? So let's do the same thing, okay? We're going to start from unison, minor second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, okay? So what I'm trying to say is that this right here is a perfect, whoops. Let's take a look at this, okay? This is where the staff distance scenario comes into play, okay? So what is the staff distance from this note to this note?
Third.
Third, right? The staff distance is still a third. I guess I wrote it up here, right? Now, what is the half step? What is the half step distance? Well, let's just say, like, what is the vanilla interval? The vanilla interval is
Perfect fourth.
perfect fourth. So we have to basically make this vanilla interval somehow match this being the staff distance of being a third. So instead of being a perfect fourth, we're gonna have to describe this as a third in some way, right? So we have to, by definition, it's got to be a third. Now we have to make it do we have to make this third a little bigger than the vanilla form or smaller than the vanilla form?
Bigger.
So it's bigger than so a major third. What is bigger than a major third? Bigger than
Augmented third.
exactly. It's an augmented third. Right. So you start out with a third, and you have to somehow make it a little bigger. So you make it an augmented third. So let's take another example. So this whole staff distance vanilla interval situation comes into most in handy when you're dealing with the non-vanilla intervals, like augmented intervals or tritones. Things that don't exactly correspond to the chart. You have to basically reference the vanilla intervals to kind of figure out the non-vanilla intervals, or to double check that you actually got a standard interval. So let's try a different one. Okay, so we have this to this. Now, what are we dealing with? What is the staff distance?
4?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Technically, it's a fifth. If you're okay, so yeah, so you want to include the the starting note.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have a fifth, and then let's figure out the vanilla interval. Whoops, vanilla interval. So that we get by just, remember, we're just looking at the keyboard. This is one of the reasons I think it's good to know piano. One of the nice things about piano, compared to an instrument like saxophone or clarinet, is that the notes on the piano are very logically laid out from lowest to highest. The notes on a clarinet and saxophone are logically laid out, but you'll finger a note. It's not exactly intuitive necessarily that you're playing a higher note when you change fingerings. It's not exactly clear that way, right? Violin and guitar, I mean, if I just go to like guitar, for instance, whoops. If I go to the fretboard, it's here somewhere. Right? If I go to the fretboard, you have to like jump strings. You could play this note in many different ways. You could play this G all the way over here. You could play this G over here. So it's not exactly clear, like the lowest notes are on the left side of the keyboard, highest notes are on the high side of the keyboard, the right side of the keyboard. It's logically laid out in that way. It's convenient to see that way. So similarly, it's very convenient, at least for me, I'm prejudiced because piano is my first instrument, to visualize intervals by looking at a piano. Because I can clearly see how many half steps the distance makes up between these two notes, right? It's just very logically laid out. So I'm on this particular note, and remember, we're trying to eventually climb to this note. So let's count every single note in between here and here, in intervals, okay? So unison, minor second, major second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth. Okay, so the vanilla interval is what? Perfect fifth. Is that, you guys following? So here's the thing, if this vanilla interval, if like the interval of the vanilla interval matches the staff distance, then you're done. Then the calculation you've done is correct. Like basically that means that this is indeed a perfect fifth. So meaning like if on the vanilla interval you get some sort of fifth and the staff distance you knew was already a fifth, that means that this is actually correct. This is a perfect fifth. Okay? This is just like the logical process to test your work, right? Let that sink in for a little bit. That might not be intuitive. I know for a fact it wasn't intuitive to me. So just take my word for it for now, but think about why that is, right? It's true. It's a true statement. Let's try another example. Okay, so this is really important. We need to understand intervals before we can understand triads, right? You gotta somehow build a snowman, right? So let's try another one. Let's try. So you know what? I'm just gonna ask the crowd here. Give me a note, any note.
A.
G.
Okay, someone gave me A, someone gave me D. Those are very good choices. D and A. I have a shirt that says DNA, the code of life, or I think that's what it says, the code of life. Okay, so you got A, and you got D. Okay. So what is the staff distance here? One, two, three, four, right? Space, line, space, line, right? So the staff distance is
4.
4.
very good. The vanilla interval is, well, let's look at the piano, right? So we're on A, D. So we're trying to go from this note, whoops. We're trying to go from this note to this note. And remember, you just have to climb. It's easy to see the half steps if you look at the top part of the piano, right? Because every single note that you travel on from the top is basically a half step, right? So you're starting from this note, this A, and then you're going to this D. So let's start from here. Unison. Okay, so this time let's get the crowd to participate. Unison?
Unison. Minor second, major second, minor
Minor
third,
third.
major
Major
third,
third.
and then perfect
Perfect
fourth.
fourth.
Okay, so we got a perfect fourth here. So here's the situation. This is indeed a fourth, and the staff distance was a fourth, which means that this interval is exactly correct. This is a perfect fourth, okay? Let's tweak this a little bit. Okay? So now we're going from this note to this note. Da, da, okay? Let's do that one more time. Unison?
Unison. Minor second, major second,
Second.
Minor
Minor
third.
third.
minor third, major
Major
third,
third. Perfect
perfect
fourth.
fourth, tritone.
Tritone.
Tone.
Okay, so now this is a tritone, right? And I guess you could call it a diminished fifth or an augmented fourth too. It doesn't really matter. We'll just call it a tritone for now. So now we have to basically reconcile calling this a fourth, but making it bigger than a fourth. It's still got to stay the staff distance of a fourth. You've got to spell it that way for reading convenience. So it's going to be spelled as a fourth. Instead of a perfect fourth, what is one bigger than a perfect fourth?
Augmented fourth.
Augmented fourth, right? So that's basically the logic, right, of how this works. If you can understand this logic, you won't stub your toe on the homework assignments, because you're going to get a lot of questions about intervals. Like I firmly believe that intervals are like the most important thing in terms of, well, from a pitch standpoint, it constitutes the basis for everything else you learn. So it's like really a fundamental thing. Like you can't build a snowman without snow. You can't build an interval. You can't build a chord without intervals. So it's very, very important that you understand this. Spelling is also a very good thing. You know, I did a lot of spelling contests as a child. There's a stereotype that Indian people do spelling bees, and it's true in my case. I did do it, and it's interesting though. I always wondered why spelling mattered. Right? There was a time when, you know, in the Shakespearean days, when they didn't have unified spelling, and there wasn't really this. Things were not as good as they were today. You might think, well, why do you spell? Why do we need spelling? It's actually to make everything easier for us. It actually, by spelling things correctly, like music is already chaotic enough. It's already very difficult to navigate the sea of notes and chords as it is. So if you actually regularize an aspect of it, if you actually like what you see is what you get kind of paradigm, if you like look at this and if it looks like a fifth and it sounds like a fifth, if it looks what it sounds like, then you have a better chance of kind of absorbing it the first time. So let me give you an example. So remember how I was talking about triads? Triads are 3/3. You're basically building a snowman. What is stopping me from doing this? What is stopping me from doing this? I just spelled this note out, gosh, as this triad is an C, F flat, and A double flat, right? Now, what is the point of this? This just confuses everyone. Like I'm spelling this in a very bad way from the standpoint that structurally speaking, as a music reader, I'm trying to discern what this is. I'm trying to figure out that this is a triad. This sounds a certain way, right? If I spell it this way, I'm losing information. It's like spelling is actually advantageous because it's a process of elimination. You're actually telling the user, oh, it's actually this thing. You're being extremely specific. So, so I'm very grateful that I spent some time shedding those letters because it's paid off. And I will recommend you do, it especially pays off in music. I would argue even more than language. If you spell things correctly, it just, you know, if you're in a situation where you're composing music for your friends, it's one of those things where you have this kind of these lofty expectations that everything's going to go well right away, when in reality, like, it's just never as nice as you think it will go, because like rehearsal time is constrained. You don't have as much time with the people to rehearse. The music is difficult. Everyone gets frustrated. So you want to make everything as easy for your participants as possible. This is something that I learned the hard way. So for instance, if I'm giving this music to my friends, I would not give it to them like this. This would be torturous. It just hurts my brain just looking at it myself. I would much rather spell this chord out for them like this. So then they would have a better chance of getting it correct the first time, and they'd be able to hear it in their head and so forth and so on, right? So that's why I'm very nitpicky with spelling. It's actually to make your life easier, believe it or not. I didn't feel that way when I was practicing for the spelling bee, but I'm grateful now. So let's see. If we're getting on to the particular aspects of triads, we have to actually understand why these intervals, what intervals make up which triad, right? So right here we have a major triad, right? And I've got a major third on the bottom and a minor third on the top, right? That's a major triad. A minor triad has a minor third on bottom and a major third on top. A diminished triad has a minor third on bottom and a minor third on top. And an augmented triad has a major third on bottom and a major third on top. Okay? So let's build a triad, shall we? Let's build a snowman. So, give me a note, any note.
E.
Okay, this is a great party exercise, by the way, building a triad for your friends. All right, so I've got an E right here. All right, so my claim is we're gonna successfully construct a major triad. All right, let's do it. So first of all, let's just put the triad in place, remember? Now this is the great thing about spelling, right? I can just automatically, it's a given that I'm gonna put those notes down. We have to modify them somehow, right? But, let's see. Okay, at this point, your friends are probably really impressed. And now let's close the deal, all right? So you have this E, we have to build a major triad. Sorry, we have to build a major triad, that's true. But we have to, remember, the intervals that make up a major triad are what? What is the bottom interval?
Major third.
Major third. Now, abbreviation goes like this. Major third is capital M, right? How about this interval right here? What is the interval that makes this up?
Minor third.
Okay. All right. So we have this major third and we have this minor third, right? Now, it's not quite that way yet, but let's actually make it that way, right? The staff distance is already conveniently a third. Now, if we were to make this a major third, what is the vanilla version of a major third? Let's do it. Unison, minor second, major second, minor third, major third. What note did I land on?
G sharp or A flat.
Okay, so now this is a big question. Is it G sharp
Yes.
or is it A flat?
G sharp.
It's G sharp, right? So it has to be G sharp because by definition, if we want to keep that staff distance, this is a fourth. This is a third, okay? So that's a big thing right there, right? Now we're on G sharp and we're on B, okay? From G sharp to B. What is the vanilla way of getting to a minor third? Let's go from here. Unison, minor second, major second, minor third, right? So we landed on B. It matches the staff distance that we have. So we're done. This is correct. This is a major triad right here, right? In fact, this is an E major triad. Okay, amazing. So this process is exactly what we're going to use when we start doing seventh chords, right? It's very imperative that we understand this modality working, right? Let's do another example. Give me another note. Pick a note, any note. My eyes are closed. I don't even know what note you're going to say. That doesn't make
D.
sense. But you said G? Or did you say B? Well, I'm just going to pretend you said G. Oh,
Sure.
okay, great. So I have G. Okay, so I've got this G right here. And now let's figure out, well, let's work the other way. Let's build an augmented triad. Have you guys learned augmented and diminished triads yet?
Yes.
Okay. So let's do an augmented triad. So you're on G. What is a major third above G? Let's do it. Unison, minor second, major second, minor third, major third. Okay, so what did I land on? B, right? Unison, minor second, major second, minor third, major third. I landed on B, okay? Now here's an important moment to check yourself. Is G to B, is the staff distance between G and B a third? Right? I don't have to call this like C flat, do I? Right? That would be a fourth, right? I just call this B, right? Okay, now let's build a major third above B. We want to seal the deal, right? We want to build an augmented triad, right? So we have a major third here, and then we have another major third. Okay, now what do we do from this B? Well, let's start from here. Let's go minor second, major second, minor third, major third, okay? So what is this note? That's the big question.
D sharp.
D sharp, right? Now, here's a big question. I could also call this E flat, right? But that would make this staff distance a fourth, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have to make sure that it's D sharp, okay? So now we've got a G augmented triad, okay? Okay, let's do one more. Okay, pick a note, any note.
D.
Okay, D. Okay. Sorry. All right. Okay, so we're on D. Now let's build a diminished triad, okay? So remember, a diminished triad, you can see this on the one note. The different triad qualities basically refer to if it's a major triad, a minor triad, diminished triad, augmented triad. Those are the qualities of the triad, right? It's not like, oh, that's a high quality triad or that's a low quality triad. Or it has nothing to do with that. It's just basically describing, it's just if it's major or minor, etc. Same thing goes with intervals. If we're looking at intervals, the qualities of the interval refer to the idea if it's a minor second or a major second, right? A second, you know, in some ways the vanilla interval is like a quality-less interval. It's just looking at the staff distance. But once you start, it's more precise to think about the quality, right? These are all triads, but the particular qualities of these triads are as follows: major triad, minor triad, diminished triad, augmented triad. So now we're at the diminished triad stage. Now, what are these intervals that make up this triad? And remember, if first you don't succeed, try triad again. It's 2 minor thirds, right? 2 minor thirds make up this triad, right? So what are we trying to do here? Let's actually construct minor thirds starting on this note. So we're on D, unison, minor second, major second, minor third. Okay, so let's pencil that note in. We can check the staff distance later. So now we're on this F. Unison, minor second, major second, minor third. Okay, so now we're on, let's just be daring and let's just call that a G sharp, just even though it's probably wrong. Okay, so now we've got these 3 notes. These are the correct staff distances, right? These are the correct these are the correct staff distances. Now these are the correct half step distances. Now let's make sure that the staff distances are correct. So we have to make this a third, right? That's correct. Space, line, space. Now we have to make this a third. Space, line, oh no, I'm already at my destination. Okay, what do? I have to basically change this G sharp to what?
A flat.
A flat. Okay, great. Okay, so we have a minor third here, and we have a minor third. Hopefully you're following along and you're practicing this concept along with me. Otherwise, just for maximum impact. All right, so we've kind of calculated some triads here. Now I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of what's to come. Right? Seventh chords. Now seventh chords are neat, right? So right here, these right here are basically describing the qualities. Right? I could somehow separate this page so that, you know, I could do something like this. 1 second, just so we're consistent. I'm going to do seventh chord qualities, right? And then learn about seventh chords. Okay, so here you're going to learn about the different qualities of the seventh chords, right? Now you can imagine this is why Frozen was so ahead of its time, right? Do you want to build a snowman? It was so, I mean, it's such a simple question, right? But it speaks to the heart. It speaks to the music theorists within all of us. And it's this idea that, right, you do want to build a snowman, right? And when do you stop building the snowman? Do you build a 3-tiered snowman? Do you build a 4-tiered snowman? Do you go into Jazzland and build, let me see if I can find, I haven't put this on this OneNote, but do you go into Jazz, this is the 1C OneNote, I deliberately excluded things. Do you go into Jazzland and build this complicated 7-tiered snowman, this fancy snowman? Of course, why not, right? This is, I mean, Frozen asked the difficult questions, right? I do want to build a snowman, Elsa, right? I do. And there's reasons you want to continue stacking thirds. They just sound nice. That's like the short answer. And there are certain configurations that sound characteristic. Well, every single configuration is a possibility. That wasn't very informative, was it? But some configurations have more, they're more common in culture. And as like, you know, for triads, we basically exhausted every single possibility of major thirds and minor thirds. There's no other possibility we haven't excavated, right? It's like, consider a possibility we haven't come up with. There's a major third on bottom, a minor third on top. You can have a minor third on bottom, a major third on top. You can have a minor third on bottom, minor third on top, major third on bottom, major third on top, right? That's every single possible combination. Now, as you can imagine, as you increase the number of notes in a chord, when you get into permutations, or I always mix up permutations and combinations, but as you get into more of these kind of possibilities, you can imagine there's more variants of these arrangements. So for instance, these are just some of them, but you could actually conceive of some that are not on this list. When you get into Jazzland, when you keep stacking thirds on top of these thirds, you're going to exclude certain possibilities from the standard repertoire because they just are not used that often and they don't necessarily sound as good. I shouldn't use qualitative words like that, but there are certain reasons why they sound bad. I say that with a little bit of, I don't say that completely meaning it because everyone's always breaking rules and figuring out use cases of things, but they're not idiomatic, I should say. So what we're looking at here are the idiomatic seventh chords, the classically idiomatic seventh chords. Now, the way I like thinking about these seventh chords is actually by the underlying triad, okay? So for instance, I like thinking about all of these as basically, right? You're thinking about a triad that you already know, right? And then you're stacking another note on top of it. So for instance, a dominant seventh chord is just a major triad, which you already know how to compute, plus a minor third on top, right? A major seventh chord is just a major triad on the bottom with another major third on top, okay? So I should even say, right? So etc., right? So this is basically the process for how you can come up with different chords. And this is extremely liberating, actually. The fact that this is kind of opening up Pandora's box. I mean, by next class session, you're all going to be incredible jazz musicians. You're going to take this to the nth degree and just be like, well, I'm going to keep stacking thirds. I highly encourage you to do that because this is such a liberating sort of thing that is available to you. The fact that you can continue to do this and it just sounds cool is great. And there's just ways you can describe them just by describing the intervals and the triads that make them up. When you get into jazz land, you eventually start thinking about these seventh chords, this underlying seventh chords, and then you think of extensions as beyond that. So that's why when a jazz player says, oh, I got a major seventh chord, flat 9, they're basically thinking of a major seventh chord as the underlying seventh chord, and then they're thinking about the flat 9 as like an extra note that they're putting onto it, right? Just a little bit of foreshadowing, the good kind of foreshadowing. So with that being said, I'm not going to actually go too into this yet, but I want you to know that this is there and that this is going to be occurring to you for your next homework assignment. Okay, let's actually do some activities. So let me open up. By the way, are there any questions about any of this stuff? Okay. Oh, sorry. Applying for jobs. Okay, so here we go. So we're back to this Hall book. And here we are. Okay, let's look at this particular, actually, you know what? Let's actually look at some of these triads in context. So give me one moment here. There's a really good activity here. There are lots of good activities. You know what? Let me actually show you another one that's on the OneNote. If you go to resources, the very bottom of the OneNote. Incidentally, I have to send you all individual invites because I think the reason you're not able to open it on the app, which I recommend you open it on the app because look at how quickly everything loads. It's just sweet. The reason that didn't load is because I hadn't opened this notebook on this machine. But it will open up quickly every single time going forward now. But once I send you individual invites, you'll be able to get the app. I recommend it. It just makes it a little easier to jump around. Now there are some activities under the resources section. And one of the exercises, I'm going to just take a step in the dark here and look at this singing exercise for minor plus chords. Let's practice singing some chords, shall we? And what's nice about this particular exercise, these particular exercises, is that they actually describe the singing that you do in terms of theory concepts. So it separates these particular concepts based on what we're trying to learn. There's no index as far as I know, but for instance, oh, it even has some solfege stuff here, right? Okay. You haven't learned about Roman numeral analysis yet, or at least probably not in a standard rigorous way for the sake of this class. We will get to it. Just ignore these symbols for now, if they're not familiar. So we're in major keys with some well, yeah, let's just do this one, okay? So what key are we in? If we're in a major key, what key are we in? There's 3 flats here, right? So circle of fifths. There's 3 flats. So we're going 1 cycle on circle fifths, 2 cycles, 3 cycles, right? A fifth below C is F, a fifth below F is B flat. I should say a perfect fifth. Now that we know what a perfect fifth is, right? It's a perfect fifth, right? So you have to, that's why they also call it the circle of perfect fifths, which I actually write over here, the circle of perfect fifths, right? So we're calculating the circle of perfect fifths here, and we got to E flat major. That's the 3 flat scenario, right? F, B flat, E flat. Okay. So that means E flat is do. Okay. So this is do. Okay, you know what? Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Where was I? Ah, gosh, I'm trying to move your Zoom windows. It's getting in my way. Well, that was a good exercise. Let's do another one. Let's just make that a key signature finding exercise. Let's figure out the key signature for this particular exercise. So there's one flat, right? This is one that you probably memorized.
F major.
F major, right? It's just one cycle along the circle of fifths. So this is F major. And so I'm going to put F colon. This is how you, okay. This is how you often represent what key you're in, by putting a capital letter with a colon if it's a major key, and sometimes a lowercase letter with a colon if it's a minor key. Okay, so F is do, right? So let's find do. Yeah, so this is do right here, right? So we have do. And now, what is this note right here?
Mi.
Mi, right? And then we have, what is this note right here?
Re.
Re. What about this note?
Me, right?
Uh-huh, mi.
So,
So
la. So,
Again.
E.
mi. Fa.
Fa. Mi. Re.
Right?
Do.
Do, absolutely. Okay, so we have this, excuse me. Okay, I'm gonna open up Ableton to broadcast some sound. So Ableton is a digital audio workstation, in case anyone's wondering. And it allows you to put these, there's many different ways to put music theory to practice. One is by making beats. We'll talk a little bit about that, just ever so little. It's cool to put some of this stuff into practice. So what I'm gonna do just really quickly, this has nothing to do with what you need to know for right now, but I'm just configuring my audio. And at this point in time, you should be able to hear me with this kind of, it's kind of new agey, spacey piano, right? Right? Feel like we're in the 80s yet? All right, good. So I'm gonna go back to this PDF expert application. And what we have here is this exercise right here. Mi, fa, mi, re, do, 2, ready, go. Mi, re, do, mi, so, la, so, mi, fa, mi, re, do. Okay? Excuse me. Mi, re, do. Okay. I long for the days when I got to conduct the entire one ensemble, basically, is what I remembered it as, because it was just so many voices, so powerful. So everyone, please sing along. It's just, it really makes a big difference in how you absorb this information. I'm looking at your screens to see if your lips are moving. And right now, no lips are moving. Well, it's okay. Let's see. Let's take a look at this particular exercise right here. Now, there's no key signature. And we've already determined that these are major keys based on the heading. So what would this key be if there's no key signature? Or if the key signature is blank, I should say.
C major.
C major, okay? So now we're getting into bass clef, right? So this note right here happens to be, well, all cows eat grass, right? So this is C, or do in our case, right? Let's do this one. Do, do. So what is this note?
T.
Do.
Bonus points if you sing it.
Re.
Re,
Mi.
mi,
Re.
re. Good. Oh, whoops. It's weird typing and playing at the same time.
Do. So. So again. La, T, and then do.
Exactly, right? So you got a little stream of consciousness there. You saw the alphabet soup right in front of your eyes. You saw these particular ascending intervals, and you said, I know that. La, ti, do. That's an ascending. We're in scale territory now. You don't have to go, all cows eat whatever it is. Good burritos don't fall apart. All cows eat grass. Good burritos don't fall apart. You didn't have to do that. You just saw la, ti, do, right? So that's great. Okay, do, ti, do, re. Okay, let's do this. Ready? I'm gonna look. Everyone, okay, just as a test, everyone move their lips really quickly. I want to see what I'm supposed to be looking for. Just exaggerated movements. All right. I need to know what I'm testing against. Otherwise, you might be ventriloquists and you might have a low range of lip motion. All right. Okay. All right. So now I'm seriously looking at your screens. If I don't see you moving your lips, I'll be devastated. Okay. 1, 2, ready, go. Do, ti, do, re, mi, re, do. So, la, ti, do. Okay, excellent. I saw those lips moving. I'm very proud of you. Okay, let's move on to some other examples. Let's move on to some minor examples. Okay, minor melodies that basically stick to I. How selfish, no. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to figure out the key of this excerpt. Now, if it has 3 flats, oh, you know what? I actually have this under minor circle of fifths. I should probably just combine them, but remember, if you're trying to figure out, you know what? Let me see if my website actually has this. I think my website actually has a game that goes over my process for figuring out minor keys. So if you go to midimaze.com, there's a minor key signatures quiz, okay? Now, it's asking you a question. To find the relative major of B minor, do you need to go up a minor third or down a minor third?
Up a minor third.
Up, okay? All right, this is the process. Basically, you're given a key signature and you're like, oh, what is the minor key? This is the process. First, you find the relative major. So you go up a minor third. Okay, what is a minor third above B? So what is a minor
D.
third? It's D, right? And just to kind of confirm that that is indeed D, if we're on B, whoops. So we're on B here, unison, minor second, major second, minor third, right? Okay, so it's D. The number of accidentals and accidental type in D major. Okay, so then basically it's asking how many accidentals are in D major. How many? 2 sharps, right? So if we go back to our handy dandy chart, 1, 2, C, G, D, right? So there's 2 sharps. What accidentals are in the key of D major? Ah, this is another question. So what are the sharps and flats? There are a couple of ways to know what sharps we're dealing with. I should reformat this. This is a little bit. Okay. Order of sharps. You could think about it as alphabet soup forwards and fifths starting on F, or you could think about it basically as fifths starting on F. This is the way I think about it. F, C, G, D, A, E, B. Right? It's a circle of fifths. Instead of starting on C, you're starting on F. You could also think about it with this mnemonic. Fluffy cats go down alleys eating bologna, right? Something. I learned this from a book. It originally said fat cats, but that's not a nice thing to say, right? So fluffy cats go down alleys eating bologna, right? You could think about it that way. And really, I think this is terribly confusing to remember because what a picture, right? I've never seen a cat go down an alley eating bologna, but who knows? I might be full of bologna. So what I do personally is I just think about the fact that, well, I think about this line right here. This is what I think about. I think this is the circle of fifths, right? C, G, D, A, E, B, F, right? C. If you're going forwards on the circle of fifths, you have C, G, D, A, E, B, F, C. If you're going backwards on the circle of fifths, you're going C, F, B, E, A, D, G, C. So what I recommend, if we were actually doing in-person exams, what I would recommend on your paper is to draw this out. The first thing you do is just draw this out on the top of your paper. And then draw a little dashed line above C. This is like the axis of rotation, like you're rotating around C, right? If you're going forward on the circle of fifths, you're starting on C and you're going this way. In other words, this contains all the information you need if you write it this way. It contains all the circle of fifths information, but it also tells you the order of sharps and the order of flats. So fluffy cats go down alleys eating bologna are the sharps that exist. Bead, gum, candy fruit. I really didn't make that up. That's a real thing. Bead, gum, candy fruit. Somehow very satisfying. I don't know if it's because I'm hungry and it's breakfast time. It just sounds good. Bead, gum, candy fruit. Those are the flats that you are dealing with. So B, E, A, D, G, C, F, right? So if you have one sharp, the sharp is F. If you have two sharps, the sharps are F and C. If you have three sharps, the sharps are F, C, and G. If you have four sharps, F, C, G, D, okay? If you have one flat, the flat is B. Two flats, flats are B and E. Three flats, B, E, A. Four flats, B, E, A, D, right? There are so many different ways to remember this. Like there's this mnemonic here. Father Charles goes down and ends battle are the sharps. The flats are battle ends and down goes Father Charles' father. See, that just doesn't work for me. I just confuse these words and I would just probably mix them up and make up another sentence. Just somehow remember the order, just somehow remember the sharps and flats. Like there are multiple ways of remembering it, right? The most basic way of remembering it is that it's literally the circle of fifths starting on F, if you're thinking about the sharps, right? The first sharp is F sharp. The second sharp is C sharp, right? If you're thinking about the order of flats, it's literally the circle of fifths starting on B, and you're going counterclockwise, right? B, a fifth below B is E, a fifth below E is A, fifth below A is D, etc., right? This is how I do it, honestly. I just remember like the starting note and I kind of calculate the sharps and flats, right? In other words, if you know, remember how I was talking about alphabet soup and how it's really useful to know how to traverse notes in different intervals, like in seconds and thirds and fourths and fifths. If you know how to traverse this musical landscape, if you know how to traverse in fifths, you're not only equipping yourself to know what keys have which sharps and flats, you're also equipping yourself to know what those sharps and flats are. So it's useful to just know the circle of fifths very well. Now, given that this is a class where it's open book and open note, you're not presented with this kind of really intense scenario where you have to necessarily memorize that. But with that being said, I would memorize that. It's really useful to do so. You know, exams and tests in this class are asynchronous, so you're not being held accountable. Like there's not a midterm situation where you have to know this cold and you don't have your notes. But it's good to hold yourself accountable for this information. So let's do this all over again. To find the relative major of, so we're in a scenario where we have a certain number of, we're trying to figure out what flats exist in the key of B flat minor, or what sharps exist in the key of B flat minor, okay? So we're taking this quiz to find it out. So the first thing we want to do is find the relative major of B flat minor. So what is the relative major of B flat minor? What is, in order to find that, do I have to go up a minor third or down a minor third?
Up.
Okay, up. What is a minor third above B flat?
D flat.
D flat. The number of, I guess in this case, flats in D flat major is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5 flats. Which accidentals are in the key of D flat major? Well, let's take a look. Well, we have 5 flats, right? So we're starting with B, E, A, D, G. Those are the flats. B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. Okay, let's click OK. You got 4 of 4 correctly. Okay, awesome. So anyway, this is something you can practice. I'm trying to make more and more quizzes and different things on this website. I just refreshed myself into 1,000 clicks. Most of these clicks were me. I'm just going to be honest, but feel free to check this out and to practice certain concepts. Anyway, this is important because we were looking at this particular exercise and we were trying to figure out what tonic was, right? We were trying to figure out what key this was in. So we're in this situation where we have 3 flats. This is kind of the inverse process, actually, now that I think about it. But we have 3 flats. Let's think about the major key that's associated with 3 flats. What major key is associated with 3 flats? E flat major, correct? So E flat major is the major key associated with this particular key signature. Now, in order to find the relative minor of that major key signature, do I have to go down a minor third or up a minor third?
Down.
Down a minor third.
Down a minor third, right? So in other words, if I'm looking at this minor circle of fifths, if I'm here and I ended up finding that I had 3 flats and they're E flat major, right? If I go down a minor third, I land on C, okay? And I believe I document the thought process between this. Well, this is the inverse process. But anyway, this is, yeah, so you find the major key in this scenario, and then you find the relative minor that way. And then you discover that a minor third below E flat is C. So this exercise is in C minor. So I'll create a little C with a colon. It's going to auto capitalize this for me. That's okay, it didn't do it. And let's actually use La as the starting note. Okay, so C is going to be La. Okay. So if this is La, oh, let me expand this box. So if this is La, what is this?
T. Dub.
La.
La. T.
Ah, we had a nice old chromatic. Okay. Ooh-wee. Okay. So if this was, okay, so let me ask you this before you answer that. So if this was a B flat, what would this be? I think someone said it. If this was a B flat, what would it be?
So.
It would be so, right? But we took a B flat and we basically made it higher than what it was before. So we took this B flat and we basically made it B natural, right? So
Yeah.
if this right here was so, what would this be?
Say.
C.
C, senor, or senora, whoever answered. So if we had T, and now we have C right here, right? So we have C. And now what do we have here?
La.
La. Okay, so we have La, Ti, Do, La, Ti, Si, La. All right. So what we're seeing here, is basically an example of harmonic minor. Because we have this scenario, well, it could be melodic minor too. We're basically, let's think about this in terms of scale degrees, shall we? Sorry, my mouse is being a little fussy. So if this is 1, what is this? In terms of scale degrees, I should say. So if this is 1, this is going to be
2. 2, right? Yeah.
3, 1,
1.
2.
7.
Now, yes, this is going to be 7. It's yes, 7. Well, it depends on what direction we're thinking of. Yeah, this is 7, and then what is this?
1 again, right?
Yeah. So let's actually think about these scale degrees in terms of major. This is how a jazz person would think about it. So instead of this, if we were in major, what would this be? This would not be a 3. This would be a flat 3, right? If we're comparing this to major, this would be a flat 3, no, right? Because if this was C major, you would see an E natural here. So let's reference major for these scale degrees. So we have 1, 2, flat 3, 1, 2, 7, 1, right? So the reason it's useful to kind of think about these scale degrees and to think about all this information is to figure out basically what scale we're actually working with. So for instance, I actually updated the, oh, you know what? My bad. I told the TA that I updated this, but I updated the wrong OneNote. This is why I've been trying to get my own website that has all my different OneNotes in one website, like literally one note to rule them all. So this solfege right here is movable movable do minor solfege. Oh gosh, sorry, my Zoom is blocking the window. Okay, movable do. Here it's movable la. Okay. And so what we were trying to discover earlier is that there are a couple of scales. I guess like we're trying to figure out what breed of minor we're dealing with here. Doesn't matter if we look at movable do or movable la. And what we're noticing is this particular scale has a flat 3 and a natural 7. Okay? So this particular scale, so far, could be a melodic minor scale because it's just flat 3 and it's got a natural 7. We haven't seen the 6th scale degree yet, so it could also be harmonic minor because it has a natural 7. We don't know that yet, but I guess we know that it's not natural minor because natural minor has a flat 7 scale degree, right? And what we've discovered here is that this is actually a natural 7 scale degree. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. I might have confused you a little bit. I've got to start wrapping it up here because I'm a guest for another class, one of my professors, for his music exploration, music 6 class, I think. So I will say that I can't hold office hours today, but we could schedule appointments if you guys have any questions. And I'll be available probably after the meeting too. So I'm only going to be in his class for like 20 minutes probably. So if you want, I could even be back by the tail end of the office hour and advise you if you need help. So just send me an email if you wanted to talk about anything, and I'm happy to help out. But yeah, we've covered a lot today. We talked about triads, we talked about intervals. Yeah, so anyway, I'll let you do your thing, and I've got to jump off immediately because my teacher's waiting for me. But have a great day, and yeah, I noticed there's some confusion probably about this movable law, movable do stuff. So we'll talk more about it, and don't be alarmed if it's confusing at the moment. And anyway, I'm literally signing off right now, but take care, everyone.